December 14th, 1931. Royal Air Force Woodley Airfield near Reading, England. A young pilot climbs into a Bristol Bulldog biplane. He's not supposed to be flying today. He's visiting friends, showing off. He decides to perform some aerobatics. Douglas Bader pushes the stick forward and begins a slow roll at less than 50 feet altitude. The maneuver requires perfect timing and altitude. He has neither. The wingtip catches the ground. The aircraft cartwheels across the frozen earth in an explosion of wood, fabric, and metal. When they pull him from the wreckage, both legs are destroyed. His right leg is crushed above the knee. His left leg is mangled below the knee. He's 21 years old, and his flying career is over before it truly began. The Royal Air Force Medical Board makes their decision quickly. Pilot Officer Douglas Bader is permanently and totally unfit for flying duties. Retired from service. Finished. But Douglas Bader doesn't accept finished. In 9 years, he'll talk his way back into a cockpit. In 10 years, he'll be hunting Messerschmitts over France, and the Luftwaffe will learn that the most dangerous opponent in the sky doesn't need legs to kill you. The crash should have killed him. He lost massive amounts of blood. Infection was a constant threat in 1931, before antibiotics were widely available. The surgeons at the Royal Berkshire Hospital amputated his right leg above the knee. Days later, when gangrene set in, they took the left leg below the knee. Most men would have been broken by this. The pain was extraordinary. The phantom sensations from missing limbs were maddening. The knowledge that your career, your identity, your entire future had been destroyed in one moment of stupid arrogance, that would crush anyone. Bader was angry, furious at himself, at the doctors, at the RAF, at the universe. But underneath the anger was something harder and more dangerous. Pure, stubborn refusal to accept limitation. He learned to walk on artificial legs. The prosthetics of 1931 were primitive compared to modern technology. Heavy metal and leather contraptions that rubbed your skin raw and caused constant pain. Walking required immense effort. Running was supposedly impossible. Bader learned to run, then to dance, then to drive a car with hand controls. Within 6 months of losing his legs, he was living independently. The RAF watched with amazement, but held firm. He could never fly again. Flying required use of rudder pedals, constant leg pressure, split-second coordination. Without legs, it was impossible. In 1932, Bader proved them wrong. He convinced a civilian flying instructor to let him try. He climbed into an Avro 504 biplane, worked out a system using his artificial legs and enormous upper body strength, and flew. Not just flew. He performed aerobatics, loops, rolls, spins, everything a normal pilot could do. The RAF didn't care. Their regulations were clear. No legs meant no flying, regardless of what Bader could demonstrate. He was offered a desk job. He refused and resigned from the service in 1933. From 1933 to 1939, Douglas Bader worked for the Asiatic Petroleum Company, a division of Shell Oil. He was good at his job. He made decent money. He married in 1933. By all external measures, he was adapting to civilian life successfully. But he was miserable. Every time he heard an aircraft overhead, every time he saw a pilot in uniform, it was a knife in his chest. He wasn't meant to sell petroleum products. He was meant to fly. He kept his flying skills sharp through civilian flying clubs. He remained current on his pilot's license. He practiced constantly, developing techniques to compensate for his missing legs. He could apply rudder pressure through his prosthetics by using his hip and torso muscles. It was exhausting and painful, but it worked. When war clouds gathered over Europe in 1938 and 1939, Bader saw his chance. Britain would need pilots. The RAF was expanding rapidly. Surely in wartime they'd overlook a technicality, like missing legs, if he could prove he could fly combat aircraft. He was wrong. His initial applications were rejected. The RAF had plenty of pilots. They didn't need a legless 30-year-old civilian whose last military flying had been 8 years ago. Bader didn't give up. He wrote letters. He called everyone he knew in the service. He showed up at RAF stations and demanded flight tests. He made himself such a persistent nuisance that finally, just to get rid of him, they agreed to let him fly. October 1939. Britain had been at war with Germany for 1 month. Flight Lieutenant Rupert Lee, who had served with Bader before the accident, arranged for him to take a test flight at Duxford Airfield. They put him in a Fairey Battle light bomber. If he could handle this, they'd consider fighters. Bader climbed into the cockpit and ran through his pre-flight checks. The artificial legs made it awkward getting in and out of the cramped cockpit. But once seated, he was fine. He took off smoothly, climbed to altitude. Then he put the Battle through every maneuver it was capable of. Steep turns, dives, climbs, stalls. He demonstrated that his missing legs affected nothing. His flying was precise, controlled, and aggressive. He landed perfectly, climbed out of the cockpit, looked at the evaluating officers and said, well, they couldn't deny it. He could fly as well as any able-bodied pilot, better than most. In November 1939, Douglas Bader was reinstated to the RAF with the rank of flying officer. He'd fought his way back into the war. Bader was assigned to 19 Squadron, flying Spitfires. He had to relearn everything. The Spitfire was infinitely more complex than the biplanes he'd flown in the early 1930s. Faster, more powerful, more demanding. And he had to master aerial combat tactics that hadn't existed when he'd last been in service. He threw himself into training with obsessive intensity. Within weeks, he was one of the squadron's best pilots. His missing legs actually provided some advantages in combat. Pilots pulling high G turns would sometimes black out as blood drained from their heads to their legs. Bader didn't have that problem. No legs meant less blood pooling in the lower extremities. He could pull harder turns and sustain higher G-forces than other pilots. In June 1940, during the evacuation at Dunkirk, Bader scored his first kill. A Messerschmitt Bf 109, then another, and another. He was aggressive, fearless, and tactical. He didn't just fly, he hunted. By August 1940, during the Battle of Britain, he'd been promoted to squadron leader and given command of 242 Squadron, a Canadian unit that had been badly mauled in France. Morale was terrible. The pilots had lost confidence. Bader transformed them. He led from the front. He demanded discipline and training. He developed tactics that emphasized aggression and teamwork. Within weeks, 242 Squadron became one of the most effective units in fighter command. Bader became famous and controversial for his advocacy of big wing tactics. Standard RAF doctrine was to scramble squadrons individually to intercept German raids. Bader argued this was wasteful. Better to assemble multiple squadrons into a large formation before engaging. Hit the Germans with overwhelming force at one point rather than feeding in fighters piecemeal. His immediate superior, Air Vice Marshal Trafford Lee Mallory, supported the idea. But the overall fighter command leader, Air Chief Marshal Hugh Dowding, opposed it. Big wings took too long to assemble. German bombers could reach their targets and escape before the massive formations got it airborne. The debate became heated and political. Bader was stubborn and certain he was right. He clashed with superior officers. He wrote memos. He argued in briefings. His personality, the same aggressive certainty that made him a great fighter pilot, made him difficult as a subordinate. The tactical debate continues among historians today. Both approaches had merit. But what's undeniable is that when Bader led formations into combat, German aircraft fell from the sky. By March 1941, Bader had been promoted to wing commander and given command of the Tangmere Wing, leading 3 squadrons. He was now flying offensive operations over occupied France, hunting Luftwaffe fighters. His score climbed. 7 confirmed kills. 10, 15, 20. Each number represented a German pilot dead or captured, a Messerschmitt or a Focke-Wulf destroyed. He flew with ferocious aggression, always pressing the attack, never backing down. Other pilots described flying with Bader as terrifying and exhilarating. He'd spot enemy aircraft and go straight at them regardless of numbers or position. His radio calls were simple. Enemy aircraft sighted. Attacking. Then he'd dive into combat while his wingmen struggled to keep up. His prosthetic legs became famous. German pilots heard about the legless British ace. Some thought it was propaganda. Others who'd seen him bailed out and been captured knew it was true. The Luftwaffe respected him as a dangerous opponent. By August 1941, Douglas Bader had 22 confirmed aerial victories, plus numerous probable and damaged claims. He was one of Britain's leading aces, a national hero, a symbol of British determination, and then his luck ran out. The mission was a standard fighter sweep over France. Bader was leading his wing, hunting for targets. Near Le Touquet, they encountered Messerschmitt Bf-109s. The dogfight was confused and chaotic, as all air combat is. Multiple aircraft twisting through the sky, tracer fire, radio calls, engine noise and wind. Bader's Spitfire was hit. The exact circumstances remain debated. He may have collided with another aircraft. He may have been shot by a German fighter. Some evidence suggests he was hit by friendly fire from another RAF pilot. The chaos of combat means we'll never know for certain. What is certain is that his Spitfire was crippled, controls gone, the aircraft entering a spin. Bader had to bail out. He released his harness and tried to go over the side. One artificial leg caught in the cockpit. He was trapped, still attached to the spinning aircraft. At 24,000 feet, with the ground rushing up, Douglas Bader faced a choice: die in the crash or leave his artificial leg behind. The leg's straps broke. He fell free, tumbling through the air. He pulled his ripcord. The parachute deployed. He floated down into occupied France with one artificial leg still attached and the other falling separately. German soldiers captured him minutes after landing. His war was over, or so the Germans thought. The Germans treated Bader with remarkable respect. They knew who he was, the legless ace. They admired courage even in an enemy. A Luftwaffe officer visited him in the hospital and arranged for the RAF to drop a replacement artificial leg through the Red Cross. The RAF did better than that. They launched a bombing raid on the area and dropped the leg as part of the mission. The message to the Germans was clear. We take care of our own, and we're coming back. Once Bader had both legs working again, he immediately began planning escape attempts. The Germans had warned him that if he tried to escape, they'd confiscate his artificial legs. This would make escape impossible for most people. Bader didn't care. He tried to escape from the hospital. He was caught. The Germans took his legs. He tried to crawl out a window. They caught him again and returned his legs because keeping him immobilized was more trouble than it was worth. He was sent to a standard POW camp. He organized escape attempts. He created diversions. He was a nightmare for German camp security. Other prisoners loved him. The Germans respected his courage but were exasperated by his constant troublemaking. Finally, the German high command had enough. Bader was too dangerous to keep in a normal camp. In August 1942, he was sent to Colditz Castle, Colditz was the Germans' answer to their worst problem. Allied officers who repeatedly escaped from POW camps. It was a medieval castle converted into a maximum security prison. High walls, constant guards, searchlights, roll calls multiple times per day. It was supposed to be escape-proof. Colditz held the most determined escapers from every Allied nation. British, French, Polish, Dutch, and other officers who'd proven they wouldn't stop trying to get out. If you were sent to Colditz, it meant you'd earned the Germans' grudging respect and intense frustration. Bader fit right in. He participated in multiple escape plans, tunnels, forged documents, diversions. Most were discovered before execution. A few got prisoners outside the castle walls before recapture. None succeeded in getting anyone back to Allied lines, but the attempts continued. Bader and his fellow prisoners understood their duty. Every escape attempt tied up German resources. Guards who were watching POWs weren't fighting on the front lines. Every forged document and tunnel diverted attention from the war effort. And psychologically, planning escapes kept the prisoners' minds active and fighting. Depression was a constant threat in POW camps. Men who gave up hope often died of illness or malnutrition. Escape planning gave purpose. Bader remained in Colditz until April 1945, when American forces liberated the castle. He'd spent 3.5 years as a prisoner, and he'd never stopped fighting. Douglas Bader returned to Britain a hero. He was promoted to group captain. He'd been awarded the Distinguished Service Order and Bar, the Distinguished Flying Cross and Bar, and numerous other decorations. He'd inspired countless people, both within the military and among civilians. He returned to Shell Oil after the war, eventually becoming a director. He advocated tirelessly for disabled people, particularly amputees. He visited hospitals, gave speeches, and demonstrated that disability didn't mean inability. He was knighted in 1976 for his services to disabled people. Sir Douglas Bader became one of Britain's most recognized veterans. His autobiography, Reach for the Sky, was published in 1954 and became a bestseller. A film version starring Kenneth More was released in 1956, but Bader was never easy. He remained stubborn, opinionated, and aggressive throughout his life. He made enemies. He said things that offended people. His certainty that he was right about everything grated on many who worked with him. Yet no one could deny his courage or his achievements. He'd overcome a disability that would have destroyed most people. He'd fought his way back into service when everyone said it was impossible. He'd become an ace, a leader, and a symbol of determination. Douglas Bader died in 1982 at age 72. He lived 51 years on artificial legs. Every single day of those 51 years, he dealt with pain, mechanical failures, and physical limitations that most people can't imagine. He never complained. He never quit. He simply refused to accept that he couldn't do something. When you study Douglas Bader's life, you see something important about human capability. His missing legs weren't an advantage in flying. They caused constant problems. Getting in and out of cockpits was difficult. Long missions were painful. The prosthetics were heavy and uncomfortable. But Bader didn't need his disability to disappear. He just needed to prove that it wouldn't stop him. And once he'd proven that to himself, nothing else mattered. The RAF rejected him because regulations said legless men couldn't fly fighters. The regulations were wrong, not because missing legs didn't matter, they did, but because human determination, skill, and adaptability could overcome physical limitation. Bader shot down 22 German aircraft. He led squadrons and wings. He inspired thousands of pilots. He spent years as a POW and never stopped trying to escape. And he did all of it without legs. The Germans respected him. His fellow pilots admired him. And disabled people around the world saw proof that limitation is often just another challenge to overcome. They rejected him for having no legs. He responded by becoming one of the greatest fighter pilots in history. That's not inspiration. That's just facts. If you want to join us on this mission to uncover the extraordinary stories of courage and determination from World War II, please subscribe and turn on notifications. These stories of people who refuse to accept impossible deserve to be remembered and celebrated. And finally, we have one question we always ask. Where are you watching from? Our community stretches across the entire globe. From the United States to the United Kingdom, from Canada to Australia, from Germany to Japan, from India to Brazil, you're not just a viewer. You're part of a community keeping these memories alive. Please drop a comment and let us know your city or state, and tell us if someone in your family served. Did someone you know overcome a disability to achieve something remarkable? Did your grandfather fly in the war? Did someone in your family refuse to quit when everyone said it was impossible? Share their stories with us. Thank you for watching, and thank you for remembering the warriors who proved that the human spirit can overcome any obstacle.